Now, how reliant are you on your local bus service, and when was the last time actually you used a bus? Well, you might have been hopping on the bus a bit more of late with the £2 bus fare that's been offered on some services. It was brought in by the government last September. It's been extended again until October, and BBC Radio Cumbria's Erin Wilson, well, she's been taking advantage.
Hiya, can I get a ticket to Kendal, please? 9 hours, one bus, one county. The £2 buses scheme has been extended throughout the summer, but can you get around Cumbria all day on the buses? Well, I found out, so you don't have to. So it's 9 a.m, I've just set off on the 555 bus from Lancaster up to Kendal. The bus goes all the way up to Keswick, but I'm stopping off in Kendal and then heading up to Windermere, and then my final stop of the day is Ambleside. So I'm taking you along with me. Nearly £900,000 has been allocated for bus companies across Cumbria to offer £2 tickets until October this year. They will then be capped at £2.50 until the end of November 2024. I spoke to some people travelling on the bus about what they make of the scheme.
When we're up here on holiday, it's worked out really well. Not otherwise we'd just travelling in our own vehicle, but we've used the bus a couple of times. We just caught the bus from Bowness up to Windermere because it was only £2. We've heard lots of people recommend it as well.
I will be using it after my card runs out. And I think it was $2.60 something before. So I think it's a significant change.
Well, I've come up here from Lancaster.
Oh yeah.
And so go to Preston, between Lancaster and Morecambe a lot. In general, it's a very good idea, yeah.
So I'm in Kendal for my first stop of the day. I've just been to the Abbott Hall Art Gallery. I'm now on my way to Windermere for the next part of the day for some lunch and maybe to have a little wander around the lake. I've just reached my final stop of the day, which is Waterhead Pier in Ambleside, and I'm sat right by the water, which seems like the perfect way to end the day.
Erin Wilson reporting. Thing is, though, it's not all plain sailing. Many routes have been cut or reduced, and last week, an influential committee of MPs urged the government to focus more on improving services. While the Confederation of Passenger Transport represents the operators of bus services right across the UK, and Andrew McGuinness is the regional manager for the north of England. Andrew, good morning. I'm assuming more people are using the buses because of the cheaper fares. Is it enough, though, to keep services running?
It isn't, but what I would suggest is the £2 national fare cap is very welcome. Any positive initiative to support bus is welcome. So in Cumbria, we've seen a 10 to 11% rise in passengers. Now, what we have seen in some urban areas, there hasn't necessarily been that rise where there's mainly shorter journeys, but of course, Cumbria is blessed with some longer distance services, such as the 555, which Erin travelled on. I'm delighted to hear the good feedback from passengers. So in Cumbria, that's been a positive thing. The £2 fare, again, a positive initiative. And again, it removes some of the uncertainty for passengers getting on buses. What fare do I pay? What's the amount? It provides a level of reassurance. So that's absolutely to be welcomed.
Analysis earlier this year, though, by the BBC showed that Britain's local bus network shrank by nearly 19% in the decade to March last year. Obviously, Andrew, if the buses aren't there, people can't use them regardless of the cost.
Absolutely, and there has been some recent challenges, of course, with the pandemic and the rise in operating costs. But ultimately, what we need is more passengers on buses, and it is this vicious circle. The more passengers that we have, the better quality and higher frequency service that we can offer. There has been some good government support in recent times for that post-COVID lag, but ultimately what we're seeing now is leisure has really led the recovery. So we're not really seeing the same level of commuting traffic, for example. A lot of people working from home, and again, that's been the challenge. So I hate to use that phrase, what is the new normal? But again, the bus network of 2019 isn't necessarily the right bus network now. But I know in Cumbria, I know Stagecoach, for example, the largest operator, is looking to work positively with the two local authorities on growing the network in Cumbria. So there has been some significant challenges, but working in partnership, and again, if we're encouraging people in the right way to use public transport, I'm confident that we can have a network that delivers for the people of Cumbria.
Thing is, though, and you talk about Cumbria, for example, in certain parts of our county, there'll only be one bus an hour. It might cost £2 for a 10-minute journey. I would suggest that that's not particularly attractive. And if you want to get more people on the buses, and unless it's convenient and cheaper, it's not going to happen. People aren't going to make the shift out of their cars onto the bus, are they?
I agree. What I would say is our biggest opposition is really the car, but it's all about It's all about considering which which mode is the best for which journey. So, for example, I appreciate everybody doesn't have a car, but traveling by bus is more sustainable, especially going into town and city centres where there's parking charges, where there's increased traffic. That does mean that there's a challenge in more rural areas to deliver a service consistent with passenger need, but also the numbers that exist. And I think the National Bus Strategy that was published a couple of years ago talks about, the right size vehicle or the right option for the right area. So that may not always necessarily be a big double-deck bus coming through every hour, every few hours. There's things like demand-responsive transport, which can be a little bit expensive to run, but there's also other innovative solutions I know that are being looked at. It's important that people are connected to the bus network, but ultimately we serve the numbers that are there, and we hope to grow those numbers. The more people there is, the more service we can provide.
Andrew, thank you for coming on the show this morning. That's Andrew McGuinness from the Confederation of Public Transport.